another colleague of ours. He
That's a party name.
Oh
Yeah.
my God! You have to meet this guy. He was a character.
I don't feel like you can hang around Chris without being a character.
Yeah.
There'll be drinking involved.
That's what it is.
Just saying.
Would you say I was a bully, Shashi? I bullied into going drinking?
See, these guys were like right off the college, and he's not going to say no to their director manager. So he would say it like 3-4 times, and then
He's like,
not really bullying.
He was gonna say no, but it just didn't work. In fact, he did
But-
say no.
See, here is the thing, right? So what Chris and this is not being recorded, right, Chris?
Yeah, of course.
It is.
So,
Oh
it
yeah.
is? Oh no. So Chris took this guy for drinking, and they were drinking really, really late at night. Next morning, doesn't show up. Chris is there right 8 o'clock for a client meeting, and it's like coming. It was in Philly at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. He's coming out, and we are saying, "Where is this guy? Where is this guy? Oh my God!" But Chris is there at 8 o'clock. So the point, the lessons learned is, my advice is, it's not a problem to go out if you're Chris, because he can be out until 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, still show up at 8, because that's what experience is all about. That was the real, onboarding or mentoring from Chris to all those kids. Chris would never eat. Chris would never eat. He would straight away go to drinking.
Voted most likely to have his check liver light
That
turned on.
was like, I was,
Wow.
how can he pull all this thing off? And Chris had a group which will go until 12, then some until 1, and then some until 2, and then Chris alone until 3 or 4. I don't know. Nobody saw Chris getting into his room.
Here's a problem. That Jameson is hitting my cheeks already, so I got the cheery. All looks cheery here.
Hi, I'm Chris Lockhart. Welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. This is our special annual edition where we have sort of a Christmas show, Christmas themed. I'm joined by Bill Bensing, Phil Yanoff, and Shashi Shromali. Actually, you're going to have to, for the camera to move to you guys, you're going to actually have to say something or make a noise. Bill, can you say hi? Show everyone your sweater.
Hi, everybody.
What? No, you got to show us the sweater, man.
You see the sweater? Have a meowy Katniss.
Oh, excellent.
Katniss.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Shashi, what do you got going on? What's your
I come in a package, if you can see in my background.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So you've got like multiple, you got a elf on the shelf. All right. Good stuff. Phil Yanoff, what do you got going on?
So here's the thing. Pretty proud of this. My bride got me this. The Baby Yoda, all digging that. What child is this? We're all looking for Baby Yoda this time of year. He is the meaning of the season.
Good. You're gonna bear gifts for Baby Yoda. Okay.
It's the Mandalorian. Beware Mandalorian bearing gifts. No, that's not right. It's got to be something.
Right. All right. So, well, this is our second. I'm kind of interested in this. This is our second Christmas special. So, that's kind of exciting. And I think last year we spent a lot of time, like sort of a year in review, right, kind of thing. I think what we want to do this year is actually share some practical advice and practical knowledge of things that we've learned this year that might actually help other people that are out there. And maybe there are some things that didn't go so well that we might want to talk about that might also help some folks. But then also thinking through, what are we looking forward to in 2020, and maybe share some of that with folks as well. So hopefully you guys like this episode. I'm going to flip to you first, because when we were talking about this earlier, you had a pretty clear idea of sort of some lessons learned in your case this year.
Yeah. So this year I launched a product called Klatch. It's a Spotify for experiences at the end of the day. And I was going through trying to find product market fit, and I found product market fit. But the problem was the product market fit was there, but the market founder fit, I didn't really want to go through it, which is funny because Klatch is something I wanted to build and have people use and me be this little marketplace. Well, what I found is other people like cities, vacation destinations, and there's a couple other use cases, actually just wanted to subscribe to the platform and white label it. And I didn't want to white label it. It was very distraught over this for about a couple months because I didn't know what to do with it, which was funny because I've never been in an area where it's successful, but yet at the same point in time, you don't feel successful. So that's been my big learning or my conundrum this year, trying to figure out how to pursue that. 'Cause it may sound weird to some folks, but you get into a spot where it's like, yeah, it's beneficial to go after it. You can make money off it, but is that really how you want to spend the next 5 to 7 years? And looking at a lot of early stage products, it takes 5 to 7 years to scale some of that stuff out. So I'm right now trying to figure that one out and pretty distraught about it.
That's interesting. Like, what's your takeaway from that? Is it you didn't do enough upfront research, or like what?
I don't think it was enough for research. What I was doing was I was discovering the market at the end of the day. This was not a discovery I expected. Not that I was sort of trying to confirm a bias I had. I try to make sure I don't try to confirm my own biases. But this just actually wasn't something I expected. And frankly, I didn't expect myself to react this way. And I think part of it was I was so invested. I built this, this beautiful little kid. At the end of the day, it was an equivalent of calling the kid ugly. And it was just because it's like, well, I don't want your kid that way. I like it this other way. And I don't have children, by the way, so I don't know what it's like to have ugly children. Neither do my parents. So,
Are you sure?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well
No.
played.
You may not have kids which you are aware of. That's okay.
Yeah. You didn't need to explain the joke, Shashi. I think we got that one. So here's the thing I want to know about that, Bill. How'd you get to the point where you decided this wasn't for you? I mean, you kind of gave us some of the steps, but I mean, it's super easy during these discovery phases to become emotionally engaged with something we're working on, particularly when we're small and we're really aimed at something. I mean, how do you get to the idea to say, no, this is not really for me?
It occurred to me, I sat down and I was starting to write a subscription contract for an organization to white label it. And I was going through putting it together. That's where it sort of hit me. That's when I was like, you know what, this is actually what I'll be doing for the next 5 to 7 years. And this doesn't seem to interest me, doing these subscription models. I think that's where it hit me, was when I was doing that. Was that sort of the answer you're looking for?
No, I think it is. The thing is, I think a lot of people get to the test, and a lot of us are afraid to throw out something we've spent some time on, or we just don't know when to say no to something, right? So I mean, and I didn't hear you say it this way, but there's a lot of times where I find myself thinking, okay, is this thing I'm doing just bridging me through the day and that's okay? Or is this what the business is going to be going forward? And will I be happy if I'm doing this for 5 years? And if the answer is, I don't see myself doing this for 5 years, or this is just horrible work and there's nobody I can delegate it to, or there's no way to like offload this particular part of it, this is actually the core of it, then that's a great time to say, all right, I got to pivot this somehow. And I might be pivoting it to something else. I may have to force fit it someplace else. But if none of that is possible, then it's just time to say, move on.
I have a related question. So how long you have been in the search of thing which you would like to do over the next 5, 7, 10 years? How long?
I guess ever since I started thinking about what's my 5 or 10 year plan.
Yeah. So question would be,
he was in this dark place and it was really nice. And then bang, the lights come on and he's cold and he's screaming.
Here is what,
ever since then, he's wanting to know, how do I get out of here?
Do you know what you really want? Because if you haven't found it in last, whatever, 5, 10 years you have been doing, and I'm playing devil's advocate, how do you know this is not the thing for you?
Oh, wise one. So, yes, strategically, I think this comes down to strategic tactics and execution at the end of the day. So I have a strategy. The question is, was this a tactic to achieve my strategy? And I think through the learning lessons and sort of where Phil's coming through is, I learned that this wasn't the tactic that I wanted to take to achieve my strategy. There was a different way I could pivot and I could take advantage of the asset that I built, but it's not where I'd want to spend my next 5 years, because there were alternative options to how I could spend my next 5 years, and this just wasn't at the top of the list.
Right. So you have a framework where you first step in the framework would be, you have 100 of ideas, probably 10 makes it, Out of 10, a few are of interest. You take it to the next stage. At that stage gate, you decide you want to move it forward till you actually find something. And as of now, not a single idea has reached to the stage where you can continue it for the next 5 to 7 years.
No, yeah, this one's not 5 to 7 years. Working on a couple other ones, but yeah, not this one. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
So you are in the dating phase still, and you are still dating 2, 3 at the same time till you get married to one idea.
Yeah, right now we're going through it's a pretty good divorce. I mean, we're both going to make money off it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Once we go around separate ways, I've definitely got some very beautiful technology that I'm going after. If I could date something for 18 months to make about $1 million off of it, why don't I just do that for every 18 months? Why do I need a 7-year plan, right?
Yes,
It's my
exactly.
7-year plan, right?
So I would never ask this question, but my good friend Chris wants to know how long away you want to bang away at something before you decide it's not for you.
Yes.
Man, I don't know.
Yep.
That's a very subjective answer.
Phil, bang away at something. Really?
Yeah.
What are you drinking over there? What are you,
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
He
I've
just got lock-hearted.
yeah. It's not a product placement, but this is Trader Joe's vintage ale, which I find delicious and fantastic at this time of year. What do you got?
I'm going to tell you, I love that Trader Joe vintage ale. What I happen to have is my favorite beer in the world for a couple of reasons. This is the Lindemans Framboise Lambic. So it's a Belgian style beer. And I love this beer a lot, but I love this particular bottle even more because someone showed up at one of our Tech After Fives with this as a host gift. And they just said, we love what you're doing. I'd like to just give you this as a gift. So it was super nice.
That's awesome.
And it was all based on a previous conversation we'd had at Tech After Five where I explained, this is my favorite beer in the world. Everyone should
say
try
something like it's this particular bottle is your favorite because it happens to be right here in front of you at the
well, there's that, and it was free, so it appeals to lots of things to me.
All right, so listen, I think Bill, that's that's not an easy thing to talk about, right? Like
when to quit, yeah.
All this blood and sweat and tears into something, and it's not what you thought it was going to be. It's not that it was a failure. It just wasn't something that you were passionate about exploring, which I think is a fascinating thing. And by the way, I think that probably happens a lot more frequently than people really let on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
well, one of the things I think in that, Chris, is that we have to be for a project like that, and I ask people a lot of times when they say, well, how do I decide among the things I am going to do? I'd say, well, what, and I don't do the 5-year thing. I say, what could you see yourself doing for 20 years, right? And then I think the other piece of this is that, and we come to this a lot, is that you have to be happy or delighted, not only with the end result, but with the work required to get to the end result. And if you can't be happy with both of those elements, then that's might not be the thing for you, right? I mean, see if you can get better fit. It's exactly like Bill said. It was founder fit, right? It's like, it wasn't that this was bad work. It wasn't that it was dishonorable in some way. It just wasn't a good fit for his temperament at this time. So go do something else.
No, I kind of like where Shashi was going, right, on this thing of like, if Bill can whip up something, sell it for whatever, and then move on to the next thing and just kind of serially do that over time, is that as an effective an approach as having like this an ultimate plan? Shashi, you got more on this? Well, by the way, what was your highlight of the year?
Yeah, there is some highlight which I don't want to talk about.
Okay, thanks for that. Next.
But where I was going with this is, take an idea. If you don't look at 5 or 7 years, but at least take it to a level where you can hand it over to someone, you can have stake in that idea. Somebody else can be executing it. Well, some people are married to the product and the work they love. Some people, when they see the product market fit, they just want to rake in money. So you might want to give it to someone who is like motivated to do that stuff. And then you get some passive benefit out of it, which will continue to fund and fuel your your own love. So I would call it, this was an attraction for you, not true love. Other true love opportunities what you have can be funded through this. Have your 10%, 20% stake, give this idea to someone, let them take it to completion with energy, and they are not married to the product. Their idea is to raise some funds, sell it to someone. Just do it.
I always like taking it to completion with energy, Shashi.
Yes. So there were two interesting things. One was within the company, an event going on, another with the client organization. They are undergoing a major turnaround. What I've realized is when you are not, you can see certain things happening within either your organization or client's organization, but you do not have enough clout or authority to influence that change or stop something from happening. Because in the corporate hierarchy, you are at such a, such a level where nobody's going to listen to you, and you know how to fix it, but you just can't make it happen. So the turnaround doesn't happen. So right now, my own company is going through a major turnaround situation, and the way they are structuring is, and I have like very clear idea of, how it could be, but I can't find a channel through which I can communicate that. Um, it's just sheer frustration. And at that point in time, sometimes you feel that why am I working in an environment where I cannot influence the change and make things right? So I'm type of person who is either fully in or fully out. I cannot be in the gray area where I do my 9 to 6 work. So I get emotionally involved. Same thing happens with my firm as well currently. Um, People seem to agree in and around. I validated the ideas, but nobody's willing to take it to the next level, and I don't have access to the leadership which can make it happen. Yeah,
Can I ask a question about that,
sure,
Shashi? And I
sure.
only ask this for you in particular because I always feel like you're a practical voice among this group of the four of us. I mean, you're frequently saying, "Oh, wait a second, isn't that the job? Just show up and do your job." Um, but it sounds like when you're talking about what you're doing is that you are getting significance out of what you're doing, right? That is the job. It's not just enough to do the job.
No,
You want something that gives you significance as a human being. And I'm kind
right.
of curious about only because you're always telling us this stuff. And I feel like, again, you're really practical in this space. What are your tools or techniques for saying, look, some days I find myself doing work I just don't enjoy, but I feel like I need to do it. I mean, how do you get yourself back motivated to get the job done?
No, it's an interesting question. When I think about it, if I'm doing something, I'll find a way to enjoy that. So it's not that a particular type of work excites me per se. If I take on something, I'll figure out a way to enjoy myself in that. And I get so involved, it's not about the thing, it's about the process which gives me the kick eventually. So that's how I keep myself motivated. Even if I'm doing like regular work, which probably is not sexy enough, but I get involved so deep that that becomes my own problem, and I want to take it to the finish line. Taking ownership of things and driving it to completion. I don't think about the subject and the topic, whether I'm enjoying or not. No, I
Yeah.
don't.
So what's your strategy for in this spot then? What's your strategy for getting yourself back in the spot of saying I'm happy with what's going on?
No, I mean, so I am trying. I am still trying. I have not given up. I'm still
Sure.
trying, but I don't think it's going to go that far. I will accept the way it is, and then I have to decide for myself how I want to proceed, and I'll shut everything out. So what happens is when I'm on a project, then all these other outside organization thing doesn't matter to me. So it becomes more between me and my client. That's an easier thing to solve. Moment I'm on, let's say, bench or doing proposal work and other stuff, then I start thinking about this broader organizational stuff. So once I'm in, I'll get myself sucked into a project, and then I will not even worry about all this. So so
Right.
that's how I keep myself away from all this
So that's
distraction.
almost like what we talk about as a flow state, right? Becoming yourself in a flow state with a project is saying,
Right.
look, I need for this thing to overwhelm either the voice of my critic of myself or the
Yeah.
work. I need it to overwhelm it enough so that I can simply enjoy doing the work. I'm going to be busy enough that I don't have time to complain to myself or others about it.
The piece about this that I think is interesting, and we've talked before about the risks of going native, right? Meaning like I'm so embedded at my client, I'm so concerned about their problem, I've owned the thing as my own. I may as well be part of their organization, right? In other words, I've experienced this to some degree over time as well, where you are so committed in some area and you are sleeves up, right? You're in there, you're doing whatever, month after month. Sometimes it goes on for years, right? At particular clients, and you're on an island. It's almost as if you don't work for the consulting company
Yeah. Yeah.
that is paying you, right? It's almost as if you're working specifically at the client. And I think, you know, maybe that's good. Maybe you want to work at the client. Maybe it's a platform to become an employee at that client, perhaps, right? But I think it could be a danger also if your interest is really in doing consulting work. And how do you get yourself off the island and get connected back to your organization and the people that you work with, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very, very good observation. And I think I have gotten used to it, going in and going out. So coming out, going in, coming out. So we do it multiple times in a year. When I go in, I do my project for 3, 4 months. And when I'm out, then I'm totally disconnected. It's just that when I'm in, then I'm fully in. So I think I have mastered that whole concept which you just explained. There is always a danger. So longer you stay there, right, more involved you will be. So if I'm there for 6 months, that's good. If I'm there for 1 year, then that's eventually 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years. That's why I try to avoid long-term association with that. That leads to major frustration. If I'm there for 6 months, I give my best. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, go and have fun. Client can take care of themselves. I'm out to some other client. Otherwise, that is the exact reason I get so involved. If I'm in an let's say industry within a particular client as a full-time employee, I cannot sustain that kind of stupidity for very long duration. I cannot. I can do it for 6 months. If you don't listen, I'm going to try 10 times. But if I can't do it 10 times, then at least I have an exit. I would go out and do work with some other client.
So
Like I see this conversation with your client, like, all right, listen up, client. You've already hit my stupid meter. I'm out of here.
I was going to say, what level of stupidity is acceptable, Shashi?
I mean, it's you can call it organizational politics, organizational constraint. In a very nicer way, you can call it organizational constraint. But it is at some point in time, if people are agreeing to you around you, and even the leaders cannot make or influence that change, then I call at that time stupidity, and it's fine. I mean, it's not negative to be stupid. Trust me. I mean,
I call it a rate change.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been at clients where they bring on someone new as an employee, and you as the consultant, as the trusted advisor, they're coming to you. They're an employee, but they're coming to you to get the lay of the land because you've been there for years, right? Like you know more about the organization than a lot of the people that work there, and that's an interesting reality to be in, right? Because on the one hand, that's very powerful knowledge to have. I know so much about this organization that I know how this organization works. And if you want X done, this is the person to go talk to. It's not this person, that sort of stuff. But it's like, how do you extract yourself from that? Right. Cause I feel like you could lose your identity. There's this bit we've talked about a lot before about a lot of these success stories around client delivery come down to your personal relationship in some cases with a particular group of clients at a large company. And so I think for me, right, it's like I like building those relationships because I feel like I'm trusted when I say something or when I have an approach. And so in a way I'm okay with going native to a certain degree, right? As long as I can put myself back out. It's like getting near the event horizon in a black hole, and then you turn on the warp drive and you can pull yourself back from that. That's kind of where I sit. And people who know me know right now the client I'm talking about, I'm entering year 3 at this client, right? And that is a long time.
I mean, I always go native. So that's the way to build that not only relationship, that earning the tag of a trusted advisor. So going native, I think, is phenomenal. But at the same time, you need to master the art of coming out when it's required. I don't know if I would ever go year 3 with the same client. The primary reason I'm in consulting is that in 3 years at a client, if I'm doing the same work, I'd rather be doing 8 projects in 3 years, or at least 6 projects in 3 years, like I work for 3 different companies or 6 different companies.
Yeah, and I should point out, right, they have been, I think it's
different projects,
4 different projects, right?
Yeah.
Projects. But it's almost like Inception, right? It's like a dream within a dream within a dream, and like you've got to be able to pull yourself out, or the Matrix and you're taking the blue pill or the red pill, right? I mean, there's some element of that. But so the thing that I learned this year, and it's in relation to this topic, right? And I think it's actually very practical knowledge that, I kind of want to pass on if anyone cares, right? But there's this notion, it's, certain types of consulting, right? That this is our model. And if the client doesn't like the model, we can work around the edges, but this is our model. And that's kind of how we deliver work. And in this particular case, what occurred to me this year as we were negotiating around a particular project, this client really was not interested in our approach, our model, which typically is like a fixed fee where, we will deliver this by this time and for this rate. And if that means that we have to put 40 people in there to do that, well, that's because we didn't really estimate this correctly.
Yeah.
But that puts all the risk on us and takes it off of the client, and they should feel rest assured for this amount, you will get X, Y, and Z. And, this particular client was not interested in that, right? Because the work was, I don't want to say it was vague, right? But the work was amorphous, right? It was something that was going to change. And there were so many unknown unknowns that you couldn't really say, this is the deliverable. We're going to do this work by this time for this amount. And so we went with sort of like a staff augmentation type construct, which was really, really different for my firm. And frankly, was sort of, I had a lot of hesitation about, right? Because I thought this is not really how we deliver stuff. But in this particular construct, it actually worked out really well. And it's worked out so well that, we're going into next year with an even more sort of radical notion for my organization. And I haven't done this type of thing before, with sort of it's almost like a retainer model, right? Which I find really fascinating. And it triggered in me just this idea that, like, there's some flexibility here that comes with having that level of trust with a client, where they say, we really want you to help us with this, but we know we need to structure it sort of differently. It's just not something I had ever thought of before. And so for me, that was like a kind of a big learning lesson. And so if you're out there and you're used to working on fixed fee or some other construct, time and materials, whatever it is, right? I think, be open to the idea that there are other ways to get the deal done, and there are other ways to deliver, without compromising sort of your values and your ideals. That was sort of my big takeaway for the year.
Could I tie the two things we were just talking to together? Because Chris, what you learned is something I'm seeing and something I'm bringing into a practice I'm building out about the retainer model. But also you guys we talked about getting caught up with clients, the concept of insourcing. So you can go in, build the expertise, but then insource, build their organization up internally to where you can back yourself out of a job. Because sometimes that's the value, paying somebody else to come in to do some of the hard work, lifting, thinking, and or taking on the risk, sharing the risk. And then once the risk has been identified or mitigated, passing that knowledge on to the organization. But then you can also do that on a retainer as well.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I think, there's other things, right, that begin to sort of trigger, right? And you sort of think like, well, wait a second, maybe we could do like, as a service, right? Architecture as a service, also known as AS, which is fantastic.
No, this is
ACE.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't that be ACE? I'm just asking for a friend. ACE.
Side note, that is now my sixth service I'm going to offer. I am offering.
You're going to offer AS, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, it makes me think like, hey, there are different ways to deliver, and we get caught up in sort of recycling the same approach over and over again. And look, if anything about the past 10 years in any of the industries, health, like Shashi, or FS, where I've been doing a lot of work, right? It's change, right? It's adaptive, it's flexible, it's all of those things that as architects, all the ilities, right? Scalability and all of those things. So I think you got to be open to sort of changing how you structure a deal. I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing going into 2020, thinking about, okay, well, maybe there are new ways to do things, right? Like I'll give you another example. A lot of companies, right? McKinsey, BCG, right? Productizing a bunch of things for subscription model annuities. Who would have thought 20 years ago that a management consulting firm would have a product that you could subscribe to, and they get annual revenue out of it. I don't know. I just like, it's interesting.
You're going through it, I'm thinking that, and I like the theme because it's funny because you think about the new things, productization. I'm actually getting ready to do something as a service for architecture use cases and tying them to the pace layered architecture. And so it's funny that you go through that because there are just tons of product models out there that you can still provide that consulting help, or it changes how you consult, which ultimately, like you were faced with, is I'm going to do a staff aug model. We've never seen staff aug, but it's actually seemed to work out in a way that's beneficial for the client and the firm.
Well, there's a difference between staff aug model and the retainer type of model. In retainer model, you still will be accountable for something. Staff augmentation is they are accountable for the success of the project or the program or the initiatives. But retainer is slightly different, I would say. And the fixed fee is definitely you are accountable for delivering what you are.
Yeah, and I think that comes out really out of this conversation, right? Which is, there are lots of things that we have to be flexible about as we're delivering, how we deliver services, et cetera. But, it is then useful to say, well, what in fact am I anchored to in all of this? And so my thought this year has been, I feel like I've been the most help to the folks that I'm working with by offering to them sort of an anchoring philosophy, right? So for me, this year has been, leaning into using just cardinal virtues and Stoic philosophy as a set of ideas, just so we know where we're headed and what we're up to, and how do we say yes to some things and no to others, right? Is that a selfie with us, a beer bottle and Chris and us?
It was. Yeah,
excellent.
A little selfie, and we'll put that up on Twitter right away.
If you Photoshop Elizabeth Warren in on that, I think that gets you the aces there. I mean, 5,000 selfies, whatever.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's not important to me. I'm just saying, it's not really a selfie without her. But I think having an anchoring philosophy. So that idea of what am I going to do? What are my principles going to be? And something that exists outside the framework of my work, because it's really more about me. How do I achieve significance? How do I lead forward? How do I do what I am doing honorably for these people? Because that stuff, it can be super fluid. So where am I headed in all of this mess? That's what I'm thinking, and I think it has helped particularly because, you've talked about, again, changing business models, and, Bill talking about things about where his projects that he wanted to work on is something he decided, no, that's something I got to set aside and go do something else. How do I deal with those difficult moments, and how do I maintain me and my identity as I go forward? What am I going to be? What am I about? Who am I here? What direction is this arrow headed in? And I think having an anchoring philosophy is useful for that.
Can you give us the 5 minutes on Stoic philosophy for those who might be interested?
Yeah, I don't even know if I can do that. The thing is, there's lots of great materials out there, and some of them are thousands of years old. So, but if you read Epictetus, so I'm, this year I've spent a lot of time diving into all of this, right? So I'm reading Epictetus, I'm reading Seneca, I've read Marcus Aurelius's Meditation. So those are all things that I'm reading now, right? And I've been through this year. And so I'm just using those as sort of anchoring principles for, okay, if I'm a guy who believes in wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, how does that show up? How do I act fairly to others? How do I do what I do with wisdom, right? What does that mean? Quite frankly, an important thing, and I think about this is super important for folks who are in consulting or folks who are out on the edges. How do I act with courage? Because there's a lot of times I'm afraid to figure out what comes next, or afraid to ask a hard question. How do I act with courage in that situation?
Oh,
and then temperance is a fourth one, Chris, but I'm not sure how you feel about that.
Yeah, temperance is not one that
not everybody spends as much time on that.
if it could be like a cafeteria stoic, right, where I could just pick and choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might work
Yeah.
best for me.
One from column A, one from column B. Forget the, yeah. But I think that's it. And the thing is, there's just a lot of difficulty, a lot of uncertainty. But how will I decide what I am going to do? How can I deal with the difficulty and disappointment? And courage. I love this. The idea of, and I know it's a thing. This is a thing that you and I, Chris, have both practiced some this year. But we've done bouts of intermittent fasting, right? So part of that is, I'm going to go and I'm not going to eat for 48 hours or 60 hours or whatever that number is for you. But part of that was just to get over the fear of saying, well, what's going to happen if I miss a meal? Am I going to be cranky? If this, what's going to go on? And you realize that it was never as bad as you thought it was going to be, right? I mean, and so you learn to deal with adversity. So when other things come at you and you're stuck in some spot, and you don't, I don't get to eat, I don't get to drink, and maybe I don't get to go to the bathroom. The question is, how bad is that going to be? And am I willing to say to myself, you know what? I mean, this is just what it is, and what's going to happen here? I'll just deal with it when it comes.
So how does that come into play with some of the things that Bill was talking about, some of the things Bill was talking about, sort of unexpected discoveries with babies, right, projects. And having to call your baby ugly, right? There's that sort of thing. Then Shashi dealing with like transformation within his organization and some of the struggles that go along with that. And then my own sort of personal realization of like, it doesn't always have to be the way we've always done it, right? We can do things differently. How does that grounding philosophy sort of play into those things?
Yeah, so let me say, I won't know that I can keep track of all at the same time, but I'll just start with like just the Shashi thing, right? So there's this unexpected, there are changes here. In Shashi's phase, if I were dealing with that spot, a thing, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have that first bit. And so Stoic philosophies would say, look, I could be at first flush, I am dealing with this at an emotional level, but I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to let that subside. I'm going to deal with this at the intellectual level, right? So I'm going to move from the lizard brain to the sapien brain, the wise ape, right? I'm going to be that one. And when I move to that level, right, I'm going to go back and say, I have complete control over me, and I have no control over the environment or my client or what they're thinking. I can influence them. I can do my very best, but the outcome is what it is. And I don't get to do that. I can do my very best. I will train, but I have to know that my reserve clause, and this is what Stoicism calls it, the reserve clause is, I'm not responsible for the outcome. I can't be. I'm responsible for me. I'm not responsible for the outcome. I can't be.
So worry about things that you can control.
And again, a thing that people probably heard much more frequently than they've heard of Stoicism is the serenity prayer, right? Give me control over the stuff I can control over. Let me do that, do well with that. Let me accept the things I can't control, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the wisdom of Stoicism is knowing the difference, right? And knowing that I have control over me, but I don't have control over them. And that's the way it's going to be.
I thought the serenity thing was like Frank Costanza, like serenity now.
Yeah, that's the other serenity prayer. That's the new version. Yeah.
By the way, happy Festivus. I think Festivus.
It's coming. It's coming soon.
I got to talk about all my problems with you people. But
it's Monday. It's Monday.
Let me ask a slightly different question. Were there any lowlights? Was there anything? Well, or is there something that you're looking forward to in 2020 that maybe is maybe that's the positive up note as opposed to like, wow, this thing really sucked. What's I don't know. What you guys have either one of those? Bill, what you got? You have a low light or something you're looking forward to or something?
Maybe it's both.
Yeah, a bit of, I don't want to say it a low light, but it's interesting. The situation I'm in right now, trying to figure out how to navigate it going forward. So 2020 is going to be interesting because that's where the outcome is going to happen. Something's going to happen with the platform I built. Something's going to happen in other areas. And right now it's not quite sure what it looks like because it is a bit of an experimentation phase. So it is, I would say, I don't want to say hesitation is not the word, but it'll be interesting. But yeah, so it's 2020 is going to see what's going to be the outcome of the past 2 years of work. How is this asset, what I've done, what I've built in a couple different areas? How is this going to now come to fruition? as far as whether it's revenue or um, reputation, whatever it may be. How am I going to control what I can control? Going back to sort of the Stoic philosophy, and then be okay with the things that I cannot control.
Makes sense to me. I mean, for my part, I'm really fascinated by sort of some of the changes that I talked about earlier in how we approach our clients and bill them, right, and deliver work for them, and trying out some of these other things. I'm really fascinated by this idea of architecture as a service, not like an individual contributor type of thing, but like as a firm. Is there enough of a practice, like a discipline, a thing that you could offer as a service, almost as, yeah, I don't know. I know people are experimenting with it. I know there's some stuff out there. You see it on LinkedIn, but I've never thought about it within the context of like a management consulting firm, right?
Oh, I am using it right now. So when I was my client, we are proposing an enterprise architecture work, but some of the leaders did not buy into that idea. But they retained me, and we are right now providing architecture as a service to them. And I've seen that in the past. It's fairly successful. It's not an ivory tower thing, but at the same time, it works well for them. So I think if you use this as an offering within your firm, that will be successful. And given the rates and all which these consulting firms charge, it becomes more attractive when you give them a bucket of hours where they can call you for the review and all those things, rather than you hanging in there for 40 hours a week and probably not doing anything for at least 20 hours.
40 hours a week.
I mean, that's what they pay for. They don't pay for, I mean, it depends on the firms. Sometimes you just maximum you put 40 hours, although you don't work, you always work 70, 60, 80 hours.
Are you looking forward to something in 2020, or you have something in 2019 that you really want to leave in 2019?
Yeah, I left something in 2019 and I'm going to pick it up after 2.5, 3 years. I'm not going to talk about it. Uh, and then 2020, I'm looking forward to two things on a personal front. Are we allowed to talk personal stuff here?
Why not? Like,
okay.
So
I
mean, to your point in the pre-roll, I don't know if anyone cares about our personal stuff, but
This is about the rash, though, right?
Yes. So I have to get it out. So I'm excited about. There is something which got resolved. So there was a lot of excitement happened in 2019 on the personal front for my daughter's taekwondo career. She was identified as a talent who can compete at the national level by one world-class athlete who has won 4 world championships, and one coach who handpicked her while she was in a seminar. And she said that I can make her a champion. They came to us. We didn't go to them. And so I'm excited about that. So hopefully we'll kickstart that journey, and I'm going to look forward to supporting her. Get some of her punches on me. She practices on me, some of those. So I'm excited about that front. Everything else comes secondary. I'm very excited about it because I work with her on that. So
I think that's fantastic, Josh. It's fantastic, and I think this is awesome. This is a great moment to remind everyone that Bill was an MMA fighter at one point.
Oh, you were? Oh my God, really?
Go YouTube Bill Bensing MMA. You'll find some.
Oh my God. On the professional front, there are two things. One is the turnaround, which got started this year within my current firm. A lot of changes are happening. I'm going to stick around to see how those changes take into effect, and if I can find the right place where I can make an influence a part of my firm. That is there. There are 3 proposals I'm working on right now in the month of December, and I knocked all of them out of the park when I presented it to my client. They said I want this guy, so I'm really looking forward to those projects to be executed for my client next year. So those are a few things, and I'll, again, as I said earlier, right, I am a strategic thinker for my client. As far as my career goes, I am a little more I want to see what things unfold. So I'm looking forward to something interesting. I looked at my horoscope, not me, my wife. I'm not into that. She said, like, this is the best part of my life or career over the next few years. And I hope we do some stand-up in 2020. We should do a virtual stand-up.
Wait a second. Hold on. Time out. So stand-up comedy?
Stand-up comedy. Yes. I have a script sitting. My first script is sitting. I just need to have the courage, as Phil said, to go ahead and just do it.
So when you go to Orlando, I'll meet you out there and we can find like an open mic night and we can practice.
Yeah.
That's something funny. I don't think viewers have met. Not all of us have actually met in person. Only
Yes.
Smith is the only person to ever meet everybody on here in person. Is that correct?
I am the only one to ever meet
Yeah.
all of y'all in person. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Makes the
that's all
trip
for
around
me.
to the various prisons, visiting us periodically. Home arrest is really a terrible thing. It's kept a lot of us from meeting each other, and now that hopefully some of us will make parole and we can go out and see each other.
The ankle bracelet.
Yeah,
will-
and a
we
home
have to do
arrest thing.
we have to do fundraiser for that.
Yeah, Kickstarter. It's
Sell-
actually a
sell-
Kickstarter. I was thinking it sounded to me like Shashi's wife was just trying to increase her insurable interest in him, and figure out the next
By
few
having
years are
his
going to be
daughter
really good. And right now, if she's trying to get you short-term life insurance, it's not a good sign. I'm just telling you, that's it's not a good plan. But you know what? I think the stand-up thing would be kind of fun. I've probably told you that I've done this before, and it is. You really have to have a lot of courage, and it really is courage. I mean, and in my case, it was standing in front of a room of 450 or so people who mostly didn't know me, and I'm not used to that. I'm usually in front of friendly audiences, but it was really something to stand in front of a room of people who I was between them and what they paid for, and I had to make them laugh, otherwise they'd have just thrown a bottle at me. But it's an invigorating experience, no doubt about it.
Is R2D2 alive there? What's going on?
Yeah, if you take a real good close look, he's I don't know if he's following. I think he follows my voice. That's probably what it is. But yes, that's
As do we all, Phil.
Yes, that it is. Yeah, he's a faithful follower and much easier to clean up after than a dog. So very happy with my R2D2 there. Yeah, I love that. You can see his head just spinning around.
Yeah. How about 2020 then? Or is there something in 2019 that you don't want to talk about ever again?
No, I've really had a good year, and I think that is setting us up for a really good 2020. We got to, my big thing, of course, is how do we have success with Tech After 5? We've run a couple of interesting experiments this year. We ran Bangalore at the beginning of the year. And, we've got Tech After 5 Little Rock has really benefited from what we learned out of Bangalore. And so the neat thing is we're running Tech After 5 events that I cannot travel to. I cannot supervise. So it's me managing, or coordinating with a remote team in order to successfully run an event. And we're just super excited about how that's come. And so now that gives us the opportunity to go run a few more cities this year. So, my big thing is how do I expand the reach of what we do? And part of that is, I've gotten to meet a bunch of new people by doing this podcast with you guys. And it's not just meeting, the two new guys. Of course, I know Chris already, but meeting the two new guys, but all the folks that we get to talk to in the audience who love this. I mean, I get people coming up to me at Tech After 5 every month, and they go, I saw you on that Consultant Saying Thing podcast. I really enjoy this conversation. And to me, it's like, oh my God, we're the luckiest cats in the world. It's four guys sitting around talking about what we would talk about anyway, having a good time. And there are other people who are learning something or enjoying that conversation. So that's super fun. I'm doing the Tech After 5 podcast. We're getting good feedback on that. We're really helping some folks with it. So our plan is to vastly improve that, or vastly increase the reach of that for next year. My goal for 2019 was to be in 50 podcasts. So I've got by the time we're done here, we'll have 24 of these. I've got 20 some of the ones that I did for Tech After 5 as well. And then I have done guest stints on a number of other shows as well that worked out really well. So I've hit that objective. I'm increasing. By the way, one of the things I'm excited about for next year is we're, through our mastermind process, we're implementing OKRs, objectives and key results, the same planning mechanism that Google and other big organizations use. So in my OKR, one of the things in there, one of my key results is 50 of my podcasts out for next year, right, of the Tech After 5 podcast. So if I get to do 12 of these and 50 of those, again, that's just increasing the number of opportunities we have to talk to people. So I'm very excited about what we're pulling off there. So all of my big initiatives are headed in the right direction. We just want to reach and help more people who are tech folks, and that's where I'm headed with it.
So at the risk of well, I got blurry there for a second. Yeah.
Not just to us, but to you.
I thought maybe it was my eyes. No.
All right.
Uh,
Which Phil? The Phil on the left or the Phil on the right?
hey, hey Phil, at the risk of like overly self-promoting some of this stuff, can you give the people who are listening that may not have already heard what is Tech After 5?
Yeah, so we're a series of live after-hours networking events aimed primarily at IT professionals and the people who love them, right? So we're doing these events in multiple cities, primarily in the southeast of the U.S., but we're open to doing it in a whole bunch of other places. Now it's via a license model. Here's the thing. We've been doing it for 11 years. We're putting somewhere between 75 and 125 people in a room every month in every city, and we are doing that so that we bring the tech community together so they can share ideas among themselves and be in their peers. It's partly that, but there are other things. You might be looking for a job. You might be looking for an investor. You might be looking for a marketing partner. You might be looking for a business partner. We try to help that happen through some super powerful facilitated networking. And again, we're doing it in multiple cities. The thing I'm open to at this moment, if you're not coming to one, please come to one. If you are interested in trying to launch something like this in your own city, we're running those experiments. So if you're the right person for doing that, we'd like to help you run it in your town.
I think you left out the most important part, Phil. There's free beer, is there not?
Here's one of the tricks. We are asking IT professionals to perform an unnatural act, and that is talk to each other in a social setting. So the way I trick them into do that is I offer them a free beer, and that's the way it works.
I got to tell you, 2 years ago, when I think Phil, you and I were smoking a cigar, maybe around Christmas, actually. Maybe it's 3 years ago. I don't know. It's some period of time ago, and we said, I was talking to you, and I just published my book, The People Problem, which if you haven't bought a copy, you should go to Amazon right now and look up The People Problem. We were sitting around, and I was saying, there are all of these topics, Phil, that like are fascinating to me, and I enjoy having conversations with other professionals that are usually smarter than I am, that have like lots of things to say about stuff. And you said, I'm gonna do my best imitation of you. You said, I think you should do a podcast.
Well, it's kind of funny because when my kids imitate me, I sound like Huckleberry Hound. I think yours was a little better on. I think that was spot on. It sounded a little more like somewhere between Bart and Lisa, but it was much better than Huckleberry Hound.
But so 2 years go by, 24 episodes, each one 30 to 40 minutes. What most people don't know is there's at least another 40 or 50 minutes of unused video. So
trash talk.
Mostly trash talk. Mostly, wait, what are we going to talk about? What is this thing? Where's Bill? Why isn't he online? That's Shashi. What's wrong with your microphone? Right? It's that sort of stuff. But there's lots of content, and I think I'm really appreciative that you guys have continued to have these conversations with me, because I think they're interesting. I think they can vary in degrees of how practical the conversation is, but I think it's fascinating to me. I gotta tell you, when I'm editing these things, I like watching them. And maybe I'm the only one, but like, man, I find it fascinating stuff. So listen, guys, I appreciate it. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to connect. And look, here's to another year of learning stuff and having good conversations with smart people. So appreciate it. Phil Yanoff, Shashi Shamali, Bill Bensing. Thank you guys. And thanks to all the viewers out there. Go check out YouTube, Consultants Saying Things. Go find the website. Just Google it. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty straightforward. And, like some stuff and send us some comments and subscribe to the damn YouTube channel. That would be good also. So thank you guys. Thank you, viewers. And we'll see you all next year.